Yeah, we made for good entertainment.
Did you have a chance to look through the minutes from the February 5th meeting, Alexis?
Yes.
Did you have any additions or corrections?
I don't think so.
If not, I would entertain a motion to approve. I would move to approve the minutes from the February 5th meeting.
I'll second.
Is there no further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Staying.
Mr. Heina,
Good morning.
says you have our annual report for us.
Yes, I do, and I've drawn one up, and it's actually a requirement of Board of Ag to get an approval on a management plan and a progress report. So I needed to have a review or get a signature on it, and then also my 2018 approval. And I've also got us all listed as our pesticide dealer. And I just wanted to do a little discussion on purchasing of chemicals and everything for roadside use this year, so I don't know if that's something you want me to bid out or have it on last year, or
I think we
in
bid it.
conjunction with the Department of Public Works or Mike. And
Yeah, I think, didn't we bid it last year?
we did. We did.
So,
Something.
yeah, you might discuss with him about how much of each one you think we're gonna need, and
Yeah, the list of it.
I think
I also had,
they had several people bid on it last time.
I don't know if that's something they looked at in the past, but a list of our priority on spraying on our roads and everything. And usually I try to work it as kind of a C priority more than an A. The A's are gravel, and it depends on, I try to get the dirt roads to begin with. They kind of depends on the mud, weather, rain, all that.
What kind of inventory did we have left after last year? Did we go out and buy more?
Well, I've actually got approximately 25,000 left in my budget. I still got some on hand.
No, I meant chemicals that we had purchased that we didn't get used,
Uh,
or are we pretty well
yeah.
bought what we
Yeah,
used?
I try to just maintain just purchase what we use every year.
Oh,
So,
we didn't have much carryover. When we bid those, did we bid specific amounts or
Well-
gallons, or did we just do pricing for what we used?
actually, it was sent out to begin with was as a bottom line purchase, but
Mhm.
I ended up then we went with individual chemicals from different dealers
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah,
some were cheaper
Yeah.
on other things.
yeah, I was thinking
I
that's
just
what we did.
decided that hey, instead of a package bid, we'll purchase it from the
Yeah.
cheapest vendor.
Hmm.
So I know it saved us about 3,000 on the
Yeah.
chemicals.
Kind of pass it around to
Yeah.
among the
Yeah, right.
the
And I have that
dealers
same-
here in the county.
I have that same list. I'll probably just submit to the same vendors for bids.
Yeah.
That all those numbers, I've taken them right off actually are a year-end summary from the clerk's office. All those dollar figures and everything, so.
So this disbursement summary, herbicide disbursement summary,
Yeah,
is that, surely that can't be totals?
that's actually chemical sales or landowner sales.
Sales,
Yeah, that's our
not
sales.
usage.
Right, not our personal usage, not county usage. It's
Okay.
strictly
So where,
farmer sales.
which one has the usage on it from us? Like how,
Yeah, and I have
We have to
other,
sign that and send it in, so don't mark too
and
much.
I
on
have
it.
other records.
oh, I'm sorry.
I have
Didn't see
other,
that.
I have other records for that for our personal uses that required on this sheet.
So this page is, we sold 70 gallons of 2,4-D, we sold
Yeah, those are
17 and a half gallons of dicamba, that's,
landowner sales.
well, I did have a few questions. There were some people that approached me after last year when we did make our purchases, and their impression, and they would know better than I, because I have never sprayed nor do I know much about what it takes, as far as quantity, but their concern was that the county didn't even buy as much as maybe any one particular farmer. Now I understand you're talking about acreage covering an entire field versus spraying along the roadsides, but they were
There's-
wondering how it was possible to cover everything that we had to cover with such a small purchase. So or did we make a smaller purchase last year than we have in the past? Or?
No, it's been relatively consistent every year. We spend approximately 20,000 a year on spraying roadsides.
Is that in chemical price, or is that?
Yeah, that's chemical price, yeah. Yeah. And then, we've got all of our other added expenses with it too, so. There's approximately 1,000 miles on both sides of the road, 2,000 miles. We're spraying somewhere around, I'd say we're spraying somewhere around 4,000 acres a year. Couple acres a mile, somewhere a little less or more. And then, as I said, that falls back on that priority as, that's the kind of the roads that we, prioritize as the main roads.
Because of,
Well, most of it is because of the dirt or the gravel. We try to actually start on that map on the dirt roads. It seems like if it rains, then we can always get back on the gravel. In the past couple of years, I've been spraying from 14 West, which is 2/3 of the county, and then we had another highway department employee spraying from 14 East, so that's kind of the way it's been the last couple of years, and they come get what chemical they need, and I use what I need.
is this, have you had this map for a long time?
Yeah.
You've used this for
Yeah.
a long time? Can I get a copy of this?
Sure, you can have that one, whatever, I've got extras.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's really all I have today.
What, from our sales here of what we sold from what we purchased, like, did we sell, I don't know, 25% of what we purchased, or, cause I don't I have that file, but not here, but as far as the quantity of what we purchased. Like, if we sold 70 gallons of 2,4-D amine, how,
We're using most of our chemicals. It seemed like a lot of the farmers can purchase in bulk more than, a 2.5 gallon container. They're buying,
right, a tote.
yeah, totes of it, so we're, as a county, we're our main user of our own chemical.
So if we cut trees, and do they call you and say, we cut, can you come and spray? Or how does that work?
They've been just treating their own stumps on the cut trees. I've
Who,
sprayed.
the highway department?
Yeah. I have sprayed, smaller trees, but it becomes a cost factor once the trees are, big, they either cut them or it's just you have to use so much chemical that becomes a cost factor.
They have small sprayers that they
Yeah, we have had in the past.
take around and spray when they're cutting
Yeah.
trees.
And they're usually getting the chemicals through the weed department. And I know they purchase some on their own too, but we're actually, as a requirement of the weed department, we're not to purchase or resell any chemicals that are not for non-treatment of noxious weeds. So it's, if somebody wants to come and buy a bunch of chemicals for trees, we actually are illegal to sell it to them. We're only to sell for treatment of noxious weeds. So,
I see. So are we just approving the sales record? Is
Yeah,
that
that's his
what we're
annual
approving?
report.
Yeah, it's an
He has to submit that
progress
to the
report.
state.
Okay, I move to sign noxious weed annual management plan.
and the progress report,
Progress report?
that's what it actually
Progress
technically.
report.
It says on the top, that's normally what I put.
Yeah, then it's right there at the top of the next page. Yep.
Annual noxious weed eradication progress report 2017, as required by KSA 2-1316.
Have a motion on the floor, do I have
A
a second?
second.
Have a second, is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 I can either leave that up with Dawn or have her get copies or get you copies. It's just I have to get that in the mail to them by the 15th. So,
I don't know what Donna needs for copies, you'll have to ask her.
And so, just make a copy of these documents.
and then another question I had now is the burn ban still on?
Yes.
Okay, because we're trying to get that wood pile burned out there, but we're waiting on snow and
I think everybody's waiting on some
I was
snow.
gonna say, I hate to light it up when it's like this, so
Half inch at a time, don't quite do it.
I might drop these off of it. Just on the clerk's office, and that's all I had today.
Should get Dawn a copy of that.
Yeah,
for me.
I will.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And so if you ask for a motion, copy of
Are you guys in here for something?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah.
Okay.
They came to listen to the gentleman that's next.
Oh, okay.
He's here, yes.
Out of Salina.
This one, yes, yes.
I got an invoice from the League of Municipalities. We didn't do their deal last year because they increased the price quite a bit, but they reduced the price back down to what it was originally. And I understand that Don does utilize them some, and some of the cities in the county utilize them some. I don't know if you guys want to. The dues are $783.80.
Who utilizes this?
Dawn said that she utilizes some, and she said the cities do, and we had normally been paying it because the smaller cities like Sylvan and Barnard and Beverly can't afford to.
But they can contact them through our
That's my understanding.
subscription?
Yes. That's my understanding.
I think they contact Dawn and she does the contacting.
Oh.
Beverly oftentimes needs help and they contact the clerk and the clerk provides them information.
They work on the city side where the KAC works on the county side.
I have no problems. I'd move that we pay the fees to help.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Did you get that, Don?
I got it.
Okay, Brian Richardson.
Morning.
These are the three, I just was gonna come with
You
you.
guys can pull up a chair if you want to.
This is the gentleman that I was telling you guys about, from the company that we had talked about potentially considering using to do some pre-employment testing. This company is out of Salina. This is Aljo Wallace, Terry Finch, and Alexis Foods, our three commissioners.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Brian Richardson. I am with Occupational Performance out of Salina. Our company is not a new one. We've been around about 27 years. And maybe some of you are familiar with Dr. Gary Harvin, is an ortho in the community, and he's actually the one that started it years ago for a lot of companies that were coming to him that he was doing maybe a shoulder replacement or a rotator cuff or a knee. And they were trying to figure out if there were better ways to bring persons into the workplace and so that they weren't getting so many injured and work comp escalating and all of those things. So in the late 80s, he developed a system that really identifies whether people can do the physicality of a job. And so we've got about 120 locations across 18 states. Kansas is our largest state, obviously, with home being here. But what the system involves is an opportunity to bring somebody in, run them through a parameter of tests. There's about 28 different measurements, takes about 30 minutes. It then provides a 3-page report back to the employers. The first page is just whether or what the individual can do physically, tied back to the Department of Labor's work classifications. Those are derived by the workplace. So what does it take to push, pull, lift, tilt, and the frequencies in which they do it. So somebody may just do a 12-pound widget 300 times a day, but they may be in the same level, if you will, of somebody that has to lift 70 pounds. So we're looking at both the physicality and the frequency. And then we're going to identify whether that person has, through the algorithm of tests, whether they have the abilities to work 1 through 5 as a placement. And so it helps the employer identify, yes, they're a good fit here, not a good fit here, we can move them here with help. Just gives you some HR parameters, if you will. The second component, which is really different from some of the other opportunities out there, is it documents what that employee brings to the workplace in regards to impairments. The importance of that is, in the state of Kansas, if an employer is documenting what they bring, they're only responsible for the degree of injury or aggravation they cause.
Thereafter.
Correct. If they don't have it, they own it all. And I'm sure, as my example, I'm a former baseball player in college, and I tore my rotator cuff. And when I went through the test probably 15 years ago, I didn't share during my medical questionnaire that I had injured it, because today I feel like I'm 100%. I really forget about what I did 20-some years ago. But they clearly identified on it and said, hey, Brian, what happened to your right shoulder? So it identifies that, so that if I get injured moving equipment around, or I was in North Carolina last week and something happened to me and I went through rehabilitation and maybe I got back to 10%, they're going to argue that their responsibility is 6%, not that original 4% that I walked in the door with. So that could be thousands of dollars depending on the type of injury. So that's the second page. The third page is all of the rehab information. So we're doing a baseline of all those measurements so that instead of, maybe I come to work for the county here and I hurt my right hand. For an example, if I were able to do 100 pounds with my right hand, but only 80 pounds with my left, but if I get injured in my right, they're going to measure my uninjured side if I started with therapy. So that's where the rehabilitation component, now they may say Brian's right hand dominant, we need to get Brian up to 90 pounds. So I start the rehabilitation process, and 2 weeks down the road they may retest me and I get him 70 pounds, and they test me 2 more weeks later and I can hit 85. At some point they're going to say, Uncle, we've got Brian back to maximum medical improvement, go to work. And in that case, if I got back to my 90 pounds, I started at 100 with the county, and so I get cheated as the employee because I didn't get fully rehabilitated or compensated for that 100 pounds that I walked in the door with. So it really is a win-win because now we can take care of the employees to make sure they get back to where they started. On the reverse side of that, if I walked in and hurt my 80-pound hand, they're going to measure my 100, and that's what they're going to end up setting for that goal on the left. Probably, again, non-dominant will set it at maybe a 90 instead of the full 100. But I'm going to go through rehab, and I'm likely never to get this hand to that 90. And eventually, again, they're going to say, we're done, can't get you any higher. And the county's going to end up writing me a check for whatever that difference is in an apportionment of work comp. And so I get paid when in reality you may have got me back to that 80 or 81 that I started with. So, again, they do the job physically, tie it back to the essential functions of the job per the job description, documents what they walk in the door with, and then we've got maximum strength measurements so that we can use that for the rehabilitation process to say, hey, we're ready to go back to work, or you know what, we need 2 more weeks of rehab, and here's why. Competition-wise, here's what we see out there a lot. We have really 2 of them. One is a physician's exam. So you can send them through a physician, and that's what Dr. Harbin was kind of seeing those reports come back. If you come in to see a physician, you've all been there, what types of information would you see? You're going to get typically maybe a heart rate, a blood pressure, may have you cover one eye, read the eye chart, cover the other, tap you on the knee when you're sitting up. Good information, that's what comes back from a physician's exam. Maybe lift 30 pounds in a box. The other opportunity was the job task simulation. So I go out and look at a department within the county, maybe they have to lift X and push it so far, so I'd bring that into my clinic, and I'd make that new applicant have to push that or pull it or demonstrate their abilities, and somebody's going to check the boxes and say, yep, did a good job, and then somebody, PT, OT, doc, is going to make the signature and say, yeah, they can do the job, or you know what, I don't think this person can do it. Very subjective. You know, somebody didn't like them because of a PTA meeting or a football game last week, whatever it may be. In our world, it's very objective. Here's what they're capable of doing. I don't care whether they're 62 years of age, 22 years of age, male, female, 100 pound, 400 pound. It's regardless. Here's what the job requires. Here's what they're physically able to do. Are they a good fit for somewhere in the facility? That's on the post offer, and that's really where we live. It also, because you're getting good baseline information, that if you do have somebody that becomes injured, it's a great tool for the return to work or the fit for duty to make sure that they truly are ready to come back and that they don't need more time in rehab. Or, you know, again, you got somebody that could be off a year or 2 in many cases. Are they truly hurt? Are they malingering? Do we owe them money? We want to make sure we get them taken care of as employees. This gives you that opportunity for both the front end and that injury side if you chose to do it. So, with that, I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have or other things that you guys have discussed or thought about. But
How, I guess my question would be is how, we have job descriptions that are, you know, I don't want to call them vague, but, you know, you can't write a job description for everything that a highway department employee is going to do, or a law enforcement officer or EMS or whatever. So where do you find your baselines as to what they need to be able to do?
good question. And there really are 2 different resources we're going to use. One is called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, which is a published book, which if you went into law enforcement, there's going to be 5 pages of the different, whether it's in the jail, whether it's patrol, and so on and so forth. Same with Parks and Rec or Road and Bridge. So we're going to use that as a starting measurement. We're going to want your current job descriptions so that we can kind of go through and see what physicalities, if any, that you have. And then the third one would be the opportunity for us to come and physically take measurements and visit with staff and the department heads. Because in many cases, if we get on site and we say, hey, what does it take to do this job? What I'm gonna ask them is, what's the most demanding part of it? If you have a new employee, what's gonna make them sore? What are they not gonna like to do, whether that happens once a week, once a day? And then we're gonna measure those things. And a lot of times what the employee says they have to do, or how they're doing it, isn't always what the department head says. And so we wanna make sure we get both sides so we get it accurate. But we're gonna take those physical measurements, tie it back to the Department of Labor's classifications, and then provide that back to you guys to review to make sure, hey, you guys were here on a Thursday, but on Mondays we get this load in and you didn't get to do that, come back. And so once we get that with everybody in agreement of what those levels are, we can begin testing.
Do you do this, is it done by contract, or is it individual testing? Or
Just individual testing. So there would be an agreement that just would say, we're gonna provide you with somebody that's been, credentialed, is licensed, and they're gonna do the test, and we're gonna provide you that data, and you're gonna use it to be EEOC, HIPAA, and ADA compliant. That's really the only agreement. It doesn't say you're gonna send 5 people a year or 45 people. So if you have one new hire this month and don't have anybody else till October, then you're not paying anything.
Paid per time.
Per time.
Per
Yeah.
time.
And is it a base fee that is the same across the board?
It
No matter?
is. I think it's $112 per test.
regardless of the department?
Yes, sir.
So on workman's comp insurance, is there any help financially, I guess, because workman's comp is an extremely big premium.
Where the big help, I think, for us would be for those individuals that come in with a pre-existing impairment that we're not aware of. This would identify that, so then perhaps if someone was injured on the job, we would have that ahead of time, so we would know that for them, they already had a 10% impairment maybe in their wrist or their shoulder or whatever, and that will save us that 10%. Where now we don't know, because there's a limit, there are restrictions on things that you can ask employees and whatnot, so we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know that an applicant had
I
a
guess
pre-existing
my real
impairment.
question is, does it affect the premiums if we're tied into
Not so
something
much the
like this?
premium. I don't think, I'm not aware that that's gonna affect the premium, but it would save us in claims.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's also something we can address to them directly. It doesn't mean they're going to initiate immediately a program that gives you that deduction, but that should be something they should be thinking about as well.
Got it. That's what I was gonna share. Our experience hasn't been that they'll do it tomorrow, but if you can go back to them in 6 months or a year with the data and say, here's where we were, here's where we are today, and that
So
allows you.
basically, on the claims that come through, they will adjust it.
One,
Well, or they'll adjust the premium. If you guys go back and say, hey, we're gonna now shop you because we're doing best practices, and the one out there that'll take those premiums into consideration may allow you to lower those.
on the private side, to give them experience rating,
Yes.
and I assume we get an experience rating too.
Yes,
So
yes.
Pretty
And
good
it-
payoff in the experience
Yes.
rating.
So we had originally brought this to the attention of the board because we were going over job descriptions, and I had suggested maybe even just a physical, but then it was addressed that that's kind of medical information, like you were saying. You get this report of heart rate and all these things. So, do you record anything like that? I mean,
We do. And I would share with you, there, 2 words get used a lot simultaneously, and they're not, and that's pre-employment and post-offer. The difference between those two is a post-offer is medical. You can do anything you want from a pre-employment test. And so if you had somebody that you needed to type 55 words a minute with no errors, then you could run them through a typing test and you could do 10 people. But you couldn't do 10 people medically. You have to contingently offer one individual the job, no different than your drug test.
Right.
It's your job upon passing a drug test. That's post-offer. Ours is medical because we do heart rate, blood pressure, and those things, but it's post-offer, not pre. So it's not a deal where you're going to line up 10 of these and send out 3 and bring them back and say, okay, we're going to narrow you down now. You've given the conditional offer to one, just like you're doing with your drug.
so then do you document any pre-existing condition that maybe, if this person happens to have a heart issue, it's not necessarily our business to know that,
Right.
but it would be pertinent to the job factor because you don't want to put them in an adversarial situation.
We certainly can ask more than you can, but the reason that we're asking is to make sure they can give us maximum effort. So there's a medical questionnaire that they're going to fill out up front that gives us, are they under the care of a physician now? Have they had surgeries recently? Who did them? Are they on medications for high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever that may be? But the reason we're asking is to make sure we can run them through this test that's probably going to make them sweat and probably tire in 30 minutes. And so if we find any of those conjure effects to testing, they're asked to go see a physician and get fully released. So heart rate, any of those things that are elevated, if it's 100 diastolic, which is just the heart rate, a lot of people do 90, we do 100 because they're coming in peeing in a cup house, they already got elevated blood pressure because they're nervous. So we're doing 100. If it's higher than that, we're going to ask them to go get a release. If they're pregnant, didn't tell the interviewer, we're going to go ask them to get a review or a release. The one report that I wanted you to see in there, that's the report I was kind of walking through that the commissioners got. That page 1 in the graph is where the top of that is the 5 levels for the Department of Labor. So down below, they've applied for the level 3, which is lifting that 25 or 20 pounds to 50 on an occasional basis, okay, less than 2 hours and 38 minutes of a day. They've gone through the battery of tests and they scored a 4.37. So, unlike a lot of other tests, you know that this person not only can do the level 3 that you offered, but if you had a level 4 job that you've been trying to fill, they're available. They just can't do the level 5 safely for you. Now, page 2, even though they demonstrated the abilities to do it, page 2 is going to document some of that medical component that you were talking about. So if they're a diabetic, are they a smoker, just some history. And the bottom of page 2 is any of those impairments. So they may bring in a litany of components. Let's say, for example, if you go to page 2 and maybe you go down to item number 12, and it looks like they had knee surgery 3 years ago. Page 1 is as shown. It's a 4.37. Can you go down to number 12 and make a hiring decision because you don't want somebody that's ever had knee problems? She's correct. You cannot. You've got the new employee because you offered them a job contingent upon passing. They did. So you can't go to page 2 and use the medical information to make a hiring determination. You simply have that information to now use if they do become injured later. Okay? Page 3 again is all of that baseline information I was sharing with you from top to bottom in the 28 that you use. If somebody does get injured, pull it out of their HIPAA file, send it with them to the treating team so they know where they started at and we're not trying to guess at where to get them back to.
So we were talking about this for employment, like you said, a post-offer of employment. Do you think there's any financial advantage to the county or emotional advantage to the employee to do any screenings of existing employees, or is that?
We've had a lot of companies go back and do existing, maybe where they've identified their work comp problems are coming from. And so by job, you can't pick Billy and say, hey, come with me today, you don't look very strong, I want to test you. But if you went back and said, hey, within this department and this job, we've had 5 claims in the last year, you could go baseline, if you will, everybody in that position, but not for termination.
Right.
They're already working here, they figured out how to do the job, but you can establish that they have a 100-pound hand and an 80-pound hand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not thinking we're big enough to say we need a baseline by department just because this page 3 is extremely important, showing what their capabilities are in the status quo, so that down the line in the future, it gives you something to look back on and just say, well, you know, if this person has already worked here 10 years without a problem, that's fine, but 5 years from now when they get injured, we don't know where they've been in that lifetime of work under this particular job.
The biggest is making sure you communicate that to the employees so they don't think that you're coming after them.
Right.
But absolutely is an opportunity and legally can do that.
Is that the same test? Is it always the same test no matter?
On those it's going to be. On the post-offer and the baseline, it will. A lot of people will do it on transfers. You know, you've got somebody in a position, they want to transfer out or up. They'll do it on that transfer just to make sure that they have the capability. The other position, return to work, or the fit for duty test, that you had somebody off work for work comp or even non-work related. They were in a car wreck that was non-work related. If you don't test them coming back, you could end up owning that non-work related accident.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of. You know, anything can potentially happen, and if you don't have these records, we may have these records from now on, but if we don't have these records, and we have quite a few long-term employees, so then you just don't have a place to start. And it seems like we're living in a...
Now that test is a little different because you're going to do some tolerances depending on the injury, maybe standing, walking, sitting, how long can they stand, how long can they walk, kind of like a full-blown functional
If they've identified that they've had an exterior
Either way, if
injury.
they're trying to come back to work, have they had a back injury, how long were they off, that's going to change the test a little bit. The other thing that we're going to add is going to be a heart monitor in that return to work, so that if you've got somebody that says, hey, that really hurts, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's it at? It's an 8. But we don't see any correspondence with their heart rate going up then we know we've maybe got somebody that's trying to malinger, stay home, watch TV versus coming back. And so there's some other parameters we put into play with those tests.
Is this information ours, or is it both the employees and ours? If he leaves, can he?
It's yours because you're paying for it. If they come and ask for it, they're entitled to receive it from you.
Okay.
But you don't give it to them, you give it to us.
We give it
and
to
then
you.
we can-
You're our customer.
I visited with Saline County because, like, theirs was the example that I given you the one time, and they said that when they hire and they make the offer and they go for the testing, they tell the potential employee to do their best, to test their highest, so that if there is ever the desire to transfer to a different position or a different job, they've already done that and they already know where they are, so that they already know whether or not they qualify for advancing for a position that might be more physically demanding or have different.
There's no need for another
Right,
screening
and
for the
she,
next
and she
time.
said that she always tells them to do their best. And she said that they allow them to take it, and if they don't like the results and they feel that they didn't give 100% and they could have been more successful and they could have done better, they allow that individual to retest at their individual own cost, as I know is what she said. Because she said that she's had they made the offer to, and they came back and their level was right below, and they said, I know I could have done better. So they pay the $100 and whatever it is, $12, and they go and do it again, because they really want the job.
So they come to your facility?
They do. Yeah, we've got, I think the closest ones to use probably Salina and the Belleville Hospital has one as well, depending on where your applicants were coming from.
And are you the only company in Salina that performs this particular screening?
We are, when we happen to be the manufacturer for the United States for that, but there are certainly other opportunities in Salina. But yes, we're the only one that has this particular piece of equipment.
Typically, what's the time length of getting someone in? Let's say we offered someone an opportunity today, then how long would it take to get them in and get them tested?
Depending on when you called today, there may be an opportunity even this afternoon, but we want them in within 48 hours. And then the report it's almost instantaneous. So they go through the battery of tests, we hit send, comes through the algorithm, comes back to somebody's computer here in HR in probably less than 5 minutes. So it's going to beat them back.
Yeah, she said she gets it right away. Should they finish and she has something right away.
Anyone else have any more questions?
It seems like a good tool.
Yeah, I think it's good too. We'd like a little time probably to absorb it and discuss it. But
Thank you for the opportunity.
thank
to
you,
share.
thank you for
Thank you.
coming up. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michael, you wanna come on up and go ahead? We're running a little ahead of time, but that can change, you never know, so.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Jeremy Rosebrook is here. He also requested that he'd be able to visit during my time about his gravel pits, so I
Yeah.
guess we could take care of that now if you'd like.
Michael and I have just been talking about renewing the lease, but was wondering if, my biggest concern is just if there's no gravel taken out with the increased property tax, is there any way to make a down payment? You discussed it earlier, I didn't know.
I don't know about that. Do we have any projects coming up out there in the near future? I mean, I know you can't gravel right now, but are you looking at graveling in that part of the,
Yeah, I got several miles out there I'd had done, but we've kind of been waiting to hold back, see where this was going.
okay.
So when the weather gets where we can, we'll start in on some of it.
Would you settle for a commitment that we will get gravel out of there? If you're talking, they have several miles, you're talking about a substantial amount of gravel.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be, well, I guess 5,000 or yards, somewhere in that vicinity, I'd say, what we've got planned in that area there.
You know, I don't know, possibility of coming up with some kind of a guarantee as to taking out X amount per year. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
Yeah, I mean, even, I was looking at property tax, even if it was $500 just a down payment, I mean, that's probably just a couple truckloads, but that would cover the difference in the property tax as far as mine. Because I'm
You're not talking about an extra 500, you're just talking about a
Pay
prepayment of $500 on the gravel that we would take out of there?
Right. Just so that if, in the case of a year that you didn't get any, I still had enough to cover property taxes and.
In a normal year, we pretty well take out every pit, don't we? In a normal year.
Yeah, like I say, kind of like last year when we had the wet deal, weather and stuff, we didn't get around like we
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
do because we were confined to different flood areas and stuff, so we didn't make it quite they usually try to get set up where each blade district gets some roads taken care of, so.
I really don't have a problem with that, other than the bookkeeping nightmare. You know, usually I think we are pulling within 2 years of trying to be pretty confident, you know, so that being said, that wouldn't be much of a problem, you know. I guess what I'm thinking about is we've got a red rock pit up at Barnard that we about have to crush the rock. We're going to have a crusher come in to make it available, and I'm not sure how we can, that's not going to happen but ever 3 or 4 years, you know. And so I guess we would be treating some pits different than others. Maybe we could reclassify that as a rock pit. I'm not sure how those taxes are paid. It's not a commercial, really they're getting no commercial use out of that pit if we're not active, you know. So the question becomes whether you should be charged commercial property if there has been no activity during that year, and that's based on the 1st of January is the way I understand it, what's happening the 1st of January. There's a lot of problems in the taxation I can see, and since this problem has come up, I think the appraisers in the state are going to have to make some clarifications to that. But truly I understand where you're coming from, that if you're going to have to pay those commercial property taxes, this county probably needs to compensate that in some way.
Because like my pit, I mean, I know it's not that case, but even, say, the Bolte pit, I don't know if they're getting taxed on the whole thing, but mine, where nothing came out of it,
Yeah.
it's technically waste ground for a year, but I'm still getting taxed at the construction. Now, I understand it, you know, they start pulling out, I'll make it up. But I guess I'm even saying this is something for everybody, really.
Oh, it is.
Because they said as long as it looks like there's something going on there, they're gonna tax it.
Yeah. But what area is it going on in? I guess that's our question to the appraiser, and I think that's what Michael's been dealing with, is that, you know, looking at that map, and it looks like that this 10 acres is, well, no, we've only been working in 1 acre, you know, so why are you taxing that wasteland at commercial property? Because it's basically wasteland. Yes, you're right. So, as I said, there's some problems at the State Department and at our local appraiser's office that we've got to get straightened out.
I don't know why we couldn't do a minimum. I mean, very seldom are we ever going to not go in there and get something.
Well, we've had
Like I
that
say, we-
complaint quite a few times. We had originally talked about within the agreement, and it was never addressed then when the agreement was revised, that we could cover the cost of the taxes during the time that the pit is open and active with the county. Now, if you have an open pit and you're selling it elsewhere, that would just be a taxation that comes through us. But as far as the agreement, we talked about that, and it was never rediscussed.
I mean, looking at it, before your deal was to the landowner, you'd either give them $100 or 100 yards. Well, now you're basing that gravel, you'd be better off to take the 100 yards of gravel because it's valued at $2 versus just the 100. So
That's
it's
all we're
nothing.
offering now.
Huh?
That's all we're offering now is the
The 100.
$100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're not
Due
offering
to that,
gravel.
yeah.
Okay.
But we've had at least 3 people come in and say that nothing was hauled out for a year. And it just so happened to be the year that the taxes were caught, you know, and brought to the table as before they weren't. So it definitely happens.
Back, we would have took several thousand yards out last fall. We'd had agreement worked out, so.
Yeah, I don't think that very seldom would you ever not do the minimum. I don't see. Other than keeping track of it, but I don't know, I don't think that would be a huge problem, would it? To ride off the first 25 or 250 yards.
Potentially not.
But
Build it into the
everyone's
accounting
pit is
system.
taxed at a different rate depending on its size. A different
Right,
dollar
the size
amount,
of it,
not
yeah.
rate, not percentage rate, but a dollar amount is different.
You know, I don't know
Mine's
how
2
you,
acres, and the difference was $320 on what it is farm ground. My math, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand it totally, but it's $320 more on those 2 acres.
Is it in a pasture or in a crop field?
Crop ground. Crop ground, yes, farmable.
Because it's my understanding that the pasture rate would be the same as the commercial rate.
No.
I'm pretty sure. 11.5%. The pasture rate is set at the residential rate, which is 11.5%, which is equal to the commercial percent. And then the crop ground is at like 24%. What is it then, Terry?
Well, I'm sure pastures are pretty, what is it,
What's the rate?
$2 an acre or something maybe? What is the tax on pasture?
It's gotta be a percentage.
I didn't.
Well, I know, but
The ag land is valued at a higher value than pasture land is. That's not necessarily the assessed.
That changes the dollar rate, but that doesn't change the percent. You still have a set percentage for your commercial property,
Right.
a set percentage for your pasture land,
Right.
and a different percent. And it was my understanding when we had a conversation with Rhonda Wright, the appraiser, that the commercial rate at 11.5% was equal to the residential rate, which was also the
I get
farm
that, but
use.
It's a
that's not what
percentage of the
he's talking about.
valuation though, it's a
That
percentage
changes
of the
each
value.
individual's dollar amount. That has nothing to do, everybody pays the same percentage.
I think what he's trying to say is if your ag land is valued at $1,000 per acre, the pasture might only be at $250 an acre. I think that's what he's trying to say is
Yeah.
the difference.
It's the
So
percentage,
coming up with
but
the taxes is going to be a little different, even though it's at 11.5% versus 25%, is still going to be different if it's in a pasture.
The dollar
versus
amount is
ag.
different, but for him to be able to personally calculate between ag land, production ag land, and commercial property, which it will be taxed at when the pit is open, it's the same for him because it's his land. It doesn't matter what Joe's is down the street. It's your own percentage. If I have a $100 piece of property and I tax it at 11.5% versus 24%, it's a different number, and that's what he's saying. The increase in the taxation for his own personal property is X amount of dollars.
Right.
But that's going to be the same for everyone. That difference is going to be the same for everyone. The dollar amount all depends on what your personal property is valued at. That's why your valuation matters. But we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about him. So I believe it was 11.5% is the commercial rate.
The thing is that you have to think about everybody in a whole, not just Jeremy, and I think that's what he was trying to say, is that everybody's is going to be different.
So So the agreement needs to state that we will either cover the cost of their current taxation while the gravel pit is open, or we don't agree to that, and we just hope that enough gravel is hauled out of there in a given year that they don't come back and say, well, you know, it laid empty, or it laid unused, and I paid on it, which is what happened last year.
Is it mandatory that the state implement that? Is that?
My understanding was, yeah, there should have been for a number of years.
I didn't know if there was a loophole I could just get out of it and eliminate a lot of.
No, they even looked at whether or not there was a difference between commercial and county using it, and there wasn't.
Basically, the state statute, the way I understood it, was saying that, yes, when this person has an active area that they're excavating minerals of some sort, some kind of, you know, commodity that can be sold, that's a commercial project. So then the appraiser taxes it at the commercial rate while that's happening. I don't know, and that might be a good question for our county attorney, are we allowed to supersede that with a local decision that says, you know what, we are going to nullify this agreement with the us. You know, we won't take action on that. I mean, that's the way that government is supposed to work. Your local decisions are supposed to supersede every next level. But I don't know how, I'm not versed and well enough to know how that reads.
I don't think when it comes to taxation, I mean, we could pass a deal that we're gonna tax the wind farm, the state's not gonna let us. So I don't think that, you know, we can go the other way, either not collect taxes on something the state says we're supposed to collect.
Well,
taxes
it's not collecting the taxes. It would be an amendment to the agreement that we have with the landowner that says, during this period of time when you are in contract with us, we will not be taxed, you know, or we'll bypass that tax.
That's, I think, something to consider.
Pay it ourselves.
Why there's a lease, I think the county may be able to consider paying that at the time that it's in operational lease mode.
Well, from a money standpoint, if the next county over is gonna give you $5 a yard, and we're only paying $2, then just pay us the $500 in taxes and sell your gravel at twice the rate. I mean, it comes down to numbers.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, it'd be nice if we could come up with a set amount and not have to do every pit differently.
It'll make it a headache.
Yeah.
The other thing is whether our lease needs to be increased. I guess that would be probably the easiest way to handle it, you know, that the leases are now paid, we pay $300 a year instead of in lieu of $100 to cover that problem. Do I think we owe you all the tax? No. I'm sorry, I don't believe that we owe you all the tax increase that you got. But should we compensate you some way? Yes, probably. You know, and maybe that's what we needed to do, was look at the lease and say, you know, instead of having $100 leases, we have $300 leases, and that is to help cover that commercial taxation.
Where does that money come from in your budget? Contractual?
Comes out of our gravel budget,
It comes out of the gravel?
pretty sure.
I guess that
So
would
what's the largest
supersede
pit that
the
we have?
gravel,
As
gravel
far
payment.
as size-wise?
Would that work?
Say again.
If we up,
And
instead
it all
up
comes
front,
down
the
to the way the appraiser's
gravel,
office
I mean,
can
you know,
end up
you said,
doing it.
give you so much a year.
The
If we
yearly
increase the
footprint we
lease
have
payments, would that,
is all
would
about
that be the same thing?
Whichever pit, you know.
That might be
unless
the
we have
easiest
one
way to
pit
do
that
it.
We're gonna take a lot more out of than that.
Yeah,
So
keep
just
it
on average,
kinda
what's the
same.
active area? Because that's what they're being taxed on.
You know, most of them are anywhere
That,
from
that's fine.
2, 3 acres.
2 or 3 acres would be the maximum probably on
You
most.
know, it's, to me, it's minimal. The footprint we use. The bad thing is kind of like Jeremy is saying, is
The area
you
around
have
it is
that
wasted.
waste area
Yeah.
for a year or two. But the waste area is taxed at that lower level where
It's
it doesn't,
taxed
it
as
shouldn't
waste.
come into play on the taxation.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to come up with a dollar amount, you take the largest pit and you start there, because it shouldn't be over that. If the active area of the largest pit is 3.5 acres, do we have accurate measurements now of the pits?
I don't think we.
Yeah, we never did one.
So someone needs to get the accurate measurements for the pits, and then we would know, and the largest one, you start from there. If it's no more than 3.5 acres, then you know that there's an approximate dollar amount that would cover the taxation on that, because everybody's valuation is within a range. And if it's not, someone needs to be abating it.
Go back to the fact that for every acre we're taking gravel off of, that's amounting to $8,000-9,000 an acre income off of that. So
It's not our job to judge how much money they make, though. It's just our job to make it right with the
I'm
agreement
just
so that
saying
we can
that's
extract
how
whatever the
much
materials
We're
are.
paying them for that acre of ground.
But we're receiving materials for that. You know what I'm saying? It's a sales transaction. It's not just about the taxation.
The same as a crop, though.
Yeah, but I've heard some of the discussion going through, about how, oh, well, this person was upset about how much they were taxed on their gravel pit. Well, I'm sorry, they went for years without being taxed, and then they received a bill when there was no income, and everyone wants to talk about what income they've gotten. That's not our problem. Just like I'm sorry, but I've been made aware that there was a conversation with Ottawa County with our highway department. Did this happen?
We have discussed this, but I do not believe it was to the extent that I read in the minutes.
So, you had contact with Ottawa County Highway Department over a private landowner's gravel pit.
I discussed with him if he was going to be coming over to get some gravel out of our pit.
How would you have known that there was another county interested in a private landowner's
I believe
property?
Jeremy told me that you had some other counties looking into it.
So then you contacted these other counties and said, what?
I asked them if they're interested in getting gravel out of the pit.
Why?
I was just curious, because if they're gonna be using our road in and out of there, we would probably have to have an agreement with them for road maintenance. It's called a haul road agreement.
What road?
The Missile Base Road 260th down to 18 Highway. If we're gonna be doing damage to a road, when we're receiving the product, that's justifiable. But if another county comes into our county and removes product and do damage to our road for I guess it'd be a non-local commercial vehicle route, then there's potential that we can get money from that.
So you were seeking money from Ottawa County if they were going to purchase the gravel?
No, I was looking to see what we may need to look forward to in the future to take care of that.
I'm still confused. That doesn't make any sense.
We have other roads in the county, no commercial vehicles without a destination in the county. So it's about the same thing.
Well, what do you want to do?
He's called me several times asking about gravel anyways. If there's some other pits around or whatever. So
you
we
did
discussed.
You did or did not tell another county that we owned gravel that they were potentially seeking to buy?
I don't believe I ever said we owned it. The very first time we visited, it may have been along the lines of, I don't know if that's our gravel. I'm seeking our legal counsel to find out if that is our property or not, because we do have money invested in that. Whether or not there's an agreement or not, the Lincoln County has money invested in that. So in my eyes, I am seeking for the county to see if that would be our property or if it's just free and clear gone.
In your eyes, is it your responsibility in your position as head of the department to manage that so that that investment wasn't wasted?
Yes, it is. I believed I made quite a few attempts to get it remedied, and it just didn't work at the time.
Well, hopefully rotating all the leases on the same date will solve that problem. I would highly suggest that that not happen again.
Well, I think we need to get back to the discussion.
Have we sent those agreements out?
I have about 7 or 8 that are mailed out currently, yes.
I guess given that circumstance, I guess I would probably lean to a prepayment of gravel, or seek to see if they would be interested in a prepayment of gravel for a year. I think we want to be a little careful. I'm not sure how many pits we have. Probably need to bring that information back to us, how many pits that we would be talking about possibly having to prepay for some gravel.
Right now there currently be 13.
13. How many of them have, well, I know the one in the Red Rock pit in Barnard has nothing piled, does it?
Oh, there's a little bit there,
There,
but not much.
yeah. Are there others like that in the county?
Couple.
Couple that,
Couple. Do you know where that, there has been no activity, were those, did they pick those up as commercial pits?
I believe that they did.
I don't know. The landowner has not said anything to me about it.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, if you're talking about a prepayment, you're not talking about, you're only talking about paying ahead on what.
Yeah,
was
paying
all
ahead,
out
yeah.
there. You're not talking about an added.
No,
added
I'm not
cost.
yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Where the contract's been sent out, if I have their word that they'll come this year and get some gravel, would you want to rewrite the contract for next year and increase the lease payment? That would cause less problems for you guys at the moment.
You mean go with what we got now for this year and then change it next year, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I think we could figure that out, figure something out.
I think the only way that's possible is if you, when you sign the contract with the landowner, you have the appraisers assess the value, know what the tax rate is going to be, and pay that as part of the agreement to each individual landowner. Because if we just say 300 across the board, someone's pit may be an acre and they get overpaid, and someone's pit maybe 3.5 and they get underpaid. So instead of having a set dollar amount, I think upon signing, if everyone signs a 1-year contract, but it gives them the opportunity to sign more than that this year, correct?
Yeah. Well,
But next year we could still send out a renewal that says,
We could do that because the valuation notice would be out.
right, if the appraiser gives us the dollar amount, we can pay that ahead when this contract is signed.
If we
If
do
that
it.
would work with you, I would do that, if you
Okay.
guys are willing to.
Yeah, I think that would work because the valuation notices would be out by the time we started doing the contracts first year or whatever, so.
And are we going to then extract that amount of gravel at that point and credit it to ourselves? Or are we making that payment, the dollar amount payment to secure the contract, and then still pay per cubic yard as it comes out?
It would come off of the cubic yards that we haul out.
Say if we paid somebody, for an example, $200 in advance, the first 100 yards would come out of there as a
Without
no
pay to
sale.
them.
Yeah. You know, we have to keep track of the amount of gravel, but it would be a no sale haul out.
But then whoever's working in the pit would just, it's pretty simple, because if we do that in the beginning of each time you go to extract from that pit, it's over and done with within the first couple
Yeah.
haulings.
If you didn't by chance haul out, do they get to keep that money, or are you adding that on to
No, I would
the
say that,
next year?
I
or-
would say it's paid. I mean, once we pay it, I guess it'd be up to us to get it out of there. That would be my
And so
opinion.
then at the end of the year, it'd just be
Yeah,
off
I
the
would
books
say,
and then start over the next contract year on zero.
I would say so. I don't think that would be, you know, like I say, last year was a very unusual year for hauling gravel. You know, normally we haul a lot more gravel than that, but, so, I think the chances of not hauling out would be pretty slim.
We have a question.
Oh, when those leases come due, that was March, correct?
What's that?
In March, is that what
Yeah,
you decided on? And I'd like to see, or I think it would be a good idea, if there was a log brought forward to the commission. Just actually see how many yards or activity and.
they've done that, they've done it in the past. They brought in a yearly report on
Okay.
the amount of gravel taken out.
I
I'm
move,
not gonna say they have every year, but
I
they-
move to
yeah, they
request
do.
an annual report of cumulative activity in all county leased gravel pits.
I don't know if we need a motion. Can you bring us in a gravel report from last year?
Yeah.
Norman, you got something?
Yeah, better do some research on your legals, see who actually owns these minerals. The courts are ruling it's in the western states already. We, the white man, do not own the mineral rights, we do not own the water rights. We don't own it. You better go back to 1803 and look at the contracts, where are the documents showing where this land was purchased, from who and when. There are no documents. We don't own it, folks. The courts are already ruling this. I don't have them copies with me, the court rulings. We're in trouble.
I'm just gonna say this from a bookkeeping standpoint. It would be better if you guys would just calculate whatever it is that you want to owe, and you owe that, or you give an advance on that, or one or the other, that you don't leave it that one pit owner is gonna get the amount, whether they haul out or not, and deduct off of the gravel for one and not off the gravel for the others, because that creates an inconsistency. On the bookkeeping side, it would probably be easier if you just calculated out what you wanted to pay in advance, and then we'll get credit memos into the accounts payable system, and we'll just keep moving them forward. And as soon as they pay out to the vendor, we'll enter that credit memo in and be done with it. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have these sand pits that you're gonna have paid. Let's say if you decide $300, and maybe the Red Rock or the sand pits you don't haul out every year, they're gonna get $300 more than what he got out of his gravel. Just to keep it consistent, it would just be easier if you did one or the other.
I think that we've said that by saying each property owner, when we sign their lease, we will know from the appraiser's office what their taxes are gonna be that year. That'll be the dollar amount that we pay forward.
Okay, I think you missed part of the conversation, because I did, because I was understanding Terry to say to Jeremy that if at the end of the year you haven't hauled out gravel, then that landowner just gets to keep it, and we start over the next year. Am I misunderstanding something?
How is that, how does that affect us calculating the tax dollar amount and paying that forward in the first place? I mean,
I thought the tax dollar amount was gone, and it was that we were just going to, that's what you guys need to make as a decision. I'm just bringing conversation to the table, because I've heard three different things now. I've heard tax dollar amount, I've heard, let's just go ahead and haul it out, and we'll give them an advancement and a deduction, and I've kind of heard Al Joe say a little bit of both. At some point in time, what I'm saying is this is confusing, and we need to keep it consistent and fair to all landowners, or to all gravel pit owners, or pit owners of whatever material it is that we're removing.
the idea.
Did I miss something?
No, well, the idea of consistency and fairness is that you can't just choose $300, because to one person that's half the amount, to another person that's double the amount. If you go by their individual tax bill and say, we are covering your taxes by paying you this amount forward, then we're gonna get it back in gravel. That puts the responsibility on us to haul that gravel out of there, reduces the balance to zero, again, after we've hauled out the amount equal to their taxes for the year, and then the rest of the year they get paid for the amounts that we extract. if we fail to go in and extract that dollar amount, I would say that responsibility is on us. That's our burden because it's not the landowner's duty to keep track of the contract and then come and request and abate and everything that they've had to do this year. That's my personal opinion.
Do you see my point with that though?
You're saying that if we don't haul it out, that at the end of the year, they've gotten that payment and we've never gotten any gravel for it. Then we shouldn't have signed the contract with them. You know, we have to know within our department that we need these contracts and we need these gravel pits. It's part of the cost of doing business. We're offering $2 a cubic yard when other people are offering $4. So for us to maintain that relationship with those local people so that their gravel pits are open to us, I mean, we have someone here coming back offering to be in this agreement with us who knows darn well they can go somewhere else for more money.
The $100 lease that does that come off of what you haul off, or is that just a flat?
No, that's just a flat fee.
That's the incentive to get you to sign the contract in the first place, I guess.
Which was, you know,
But we can do
before
away
they
with
started
that.
taxing it, it was sufficient. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and it was either $100 or 100 yards, and
Yeah.
at the time,
It was
it
equal.
was a wash.
Yeah.
I mean, other than you guys had the expense of pushing it up.
But I think when we redo that contract, we can nullify that altogether. What's the $100 doesn't mean anything now. It'll be a prepayment of the tax dollar amount, so that they have that up front and they can pay their taxes with it. It's basically us paying the taxes, which is why I said if we had a legal opinion, we could know if we could just do that. Are we able to pay the taxes on any open, active pit with which we are in contract? And if we are, then it's the same dollar amount to us regardless. Because we either pay it to them and they pay it back to their tax bill, or we pay it and pay them for the extraction that we do.
No, I think it needs to be paid to them, and they pay the
I guess
taxes.
I'm misunderstanding because are you saying that you're going to advance them and pay their taxes? Or are you saying we're gonna pay your taxes, but then we're gonna reduce the amount of gravel that we're bringing in?
No,
Because
no,
that's
no.
what I'm hearing.
No,
I'm hearing that you just told him that he would figure out however many yards of gravel that is and wipe that away. See, that's what I'm saying is, Michael, how did you understand it?
You know, if it's $300, we'd pay them $300, and then the first 150 would just go out.
Of yards?
yeah.
Then we don't write them a check for that
Yeah.
150 yards.
Exactly, but then I hear you saying that we're gonna pay them.
They've already been paid. That's
In
what he said.
advance.
You gave them $300, so now you get to get your 150 yards out without
Exactly.
writing another check.
Exactly, okay.
Because
I
I
think
guess,
that's,
my opinion, you need to keep it where, I mean, other guys might look at this and go, well, at least I was getting $100 a year, and if you pull off, if that whole lease payment is taken out
Gravel.
of the gravel, then they're gonna go, oh, I didn't even get
You're
$90.
not gaining anything.
Yeah.
Well, my only thought on that is they weren't being taxed for the last 20 years, so they didn't have to pay out.
can we look into this a little bit more?
That's fine.
I think there's a simpler way of doing it, I think, probably we can come up with.
We need to
Take a look at, you know, what we can learn from the valuation, if that's actually gonna tell us what the tax is gonna be, and
Someone needs to take it upon themselves to accurately calculate each pit that we have right now, the size, and make sure and double check through the appraiser's office that the valuation and the numbers are right. One person has to do that. You can't have 3 people doing it. One person has to do 13 of them.
I think they've got a few of them measured, don't you?
We did one.
Part of them.
From what I understand,
The
you,
appraiser, if the appraiser's taxed it, the appraiser should be measured.
why weren't they measured before the taxes went out?
They did it off the
I
maps.
do not operate that department, and I cannot answer
I
that.
think they just went off the maps. That's what they did. They didn't physically measure them, they just used the maps, the aerial maps.
Just kinda like they do on the farm program, just go off the aerial map.
Well, I would say that we have employed the appraiser, and we need to request that that be done. It's our responsibility.
I'll wait.
We'll come up with something.
Thanks,
All right.
Jeremy.
Thank you.
We'll probably have to see if Kathy needs to go.
What else you got, Michael?
We got our amount of federal funds that the state will be giving us this year, and that amount is $56,481.54, and that will be exchanged at the 75.25. So it's $42,000 some change for that. And we will seek to do it the same way we've done it in the past and get our exchange when we do chip seal.
Did you have an estimate for that income in your budget?
No,
You don't calculate that into the
'cause that-
budget?
we end up putting that into a non-funded account, don't we? Or a non-budgeted account, so
Which account is that?
I believe it's the special bridge.
Special bridge or special roads.
Special road
road.
improvement, yes. And then I got some bridge statistics that American Road and Transportation Builders Association put out for last year's bridges across the country. So, information you can take a look at when you have time. That's all I have this week.
You got anything today, Bob?
Oh, not a whole lot, just, I've been working, trying to trim up some trees around. Doing a little maintenance work and stuff, and then trying to trim a few shoulders and do some rolling on them, weather allows. Been kind of controlling us here, frozen ground and stuff, we can't get much work done. So just working mainly on trees, a little service and repair work as we go. Worked on a pipe or two if we can while it's kind of thawed out or something, but they put one in the other day and said there was about 6 inches of frost there when they dug in, so don't like to be throwing that back in the hole.
What kind of results have we had on our gravel searches?
Well, some places we've come up with some decent amounts. There's anywhere from, I think, a little bit over 10, 12,000 yards in one pit, up to 30,000 in another estimate anyway, like I say. That's not going to be real accurate, but somewhere in there. So, and that's kind of up to the north area.
Is there a lot of overburden?
Some places there's just a foot, and other places there's maybe 5 foot, but there, to offset it, there's 6, 8 foot of gravel too, so it kind of varies. So most of the places I think will come out kind of even, crosswise. And I've still been looking for some other places down over there. Tested some there on Max and stuff there, and found a little bit in there, but not a whole lot. Is out there at the old hood pit there, tested a little around there, said there's a little there, but couldn't find a whole lot more in there. So,
Most of those are pocket gravel pits, aren't they?
yeah. Yeah, we may go back up there and test a little more there. One of our former employees said that when he was running the loader years back, hauling out of that pit, But there's a layer of rock in there about 8 inches thick, and they got down to that and said he was messing around with the old track loader one day and started digging a hole. He got down and dug through gravel where he couldn't see out over. But, so we're gonna try to find out if that's right or just a story around, so.
Take a long run up there and find out though. Get through the
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah, we'll see if we can break through the rock somewhere and see if there is that under there or whether that was just kind of another wild tale. But Bobby's been going around testing, of course, his dad's service tomorrow, so he's kind of been shut down, so.
Dan was wondering about chemical bids, so you might get with him and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Who is licensed in the highway department for the spraying?
We don't have anybody licensed in the highway department.
They can work under Dan.
We don't operate off Dan's.
No different than,
Do you have one of these that they have a spraying map?
It's just a county map.
This is his spraying map. Do you
prior,
have one of
his
these?
priority routes.
We should have had one.
I mean, do you have one person designated to spray, or?
We tried to do that. The employee that had done it for the last several years no longer works for us, so this year we will be using somebody else.
Okay, I guess.
That stack of papers is Michael's.
Oh, yeah.
For you to approve.
Just that signing project for the eastern part of the county. Do we need motions on that, or did we already approve it?
Well, you kind of already approved, but I think the last one you approved was the funding allocation for that.
Mm-hmm, for the $1,000.
This is the
Good.
agreement now.
So we need a motion for the agreement.
Yes.
I would move that we sign the agreement, have the eastern half of the county signed.
I have a motion on the floor, do we have a second? I'll second. Is there any further discussion?
Who is going to check and make sure that all of the spots are covered? Because, you know, we did the western side, and there are quite a few places where they didn't do anything. I mean, I had visited with the company that was putting them in, and the engineers had missed quite a few spots that they went ahead and, you know, filed for and got the approval to do. So who oversees that, what the engineer's report is, as far as this putting in locations?
We both kind of look at it.
I've looked at some and went along while they was doing it and noticed some they'd missed. And that's pretty easy to do, like I say, even the engineer or whatever, 'cause especially when they were doing it, the grass and stuff up, if it's something there that's hidden down under the weeds, grass or something, they can drive right by and don't know that it's a culvert or something in there that they need something marked. Some of them just miss and we brought it to their attention.
Are you still able to go back? Because someone just told me that the road, when you go south of Vesper on 120th and go east on whatever that one would be, just south of Vesper when the blacktop ends, and then there's a curve in the road, and it kind of curves, you know, makes a T basically, and that there's no sign there, like no warning sign there.
I'm not sure where you're talking about that. Might not
Well, that
even
would
been on the
be-
project.
Jaguar, it looks like. Are you able to still go back to them and say what they missed on the first project, on the first phase of this, or?
I don't believe so.
I think after the inspector went through and okayed everything.
Well, I would just say if we're gonna follow up and,
Like I say, whether some of them roads, like I say, whether that was required to be on that one or not, I'm not sure.
Which river was it?
It looks to me like it would be Jaguar, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the one
On 120th?
coming from 120th going east?
Yeah, there's no road on Jaguar. There is a Kiowa and Iron.
Think, you ever get that guardrail fixed right there east of Bush
Never found out who hit it either. You got any idea who that was?
No. Somebody, whatever they were driving had to be tore up a little bit.
I would think so. Do you have any other discussion on this contract? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then while Michael was here, Kathy had another obligation, so she ended up having to leave, but,
It looks like it's Lark, not Jaguar.
they are ready to do the dirt work at the, football field. I don't know if you guys remember, but when she was here about the taking down the, press box and demolishing it, she had asked whether or not the highway department could haul some dirt for them to level out, because they're gonna go ahead and make that handicapped ramp, I think, all the way to, and they are ready for that now. And when I got back to looking in the minutes, you guys never specifically approved that, so she was, going to ask whether or not it's still okay to ask the highway department to haul some dirt for them.
Where are we getting the dirt, do we know? Or was that,
I think somebody was donating the dirt.
do you know anything?
I don't know right now what it is.
You wanna get with her? Can you get
I
with
can
her?
visit with her, yes.
And is it okay then?
I
think
have,
it's okay.
I have no problem with it myself.
I think so. They're not talking about a large amount, I don't think.
So am I okay to say that you guys approved?
There's a lot of them. I think we're done.
Thanks, have a good week,
Yeah,
Mike.
you all do the same.
Gonna have some decent weather, it looks like this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah.
You got something, Deborah?
Yes. Me yet again. Okay, I did visit, I forgot to bring it, if I have 1 second, I need to run and grab the statute on the appraiser and the register deeds. I'll look over at my desk.
I want that back. You guys need to read that.
Maybe I can get some copies, Norman.
I've got it. I think we all have it.
Look, principal one, number 5 on the
Oh, yeah.
your obligation to report the illegal conduct to the proper investigative authorities. You haven't done that.
Hi, Joe. Grab my notebook, but I didn't grab the statutes. I visited with the register deed and the appraiser
they both provided copies of their statute regarding employees, and neither one is specific as to full or part-time register of deeds. It says, the register of deeds may appoint a deputy register of deeds. The appointment shall be in writing, filed, and recorded in the office of the register of deeds. In addition to the deputy, the registrar may also appoint, promote, demote, dismiss assistants to carry out the duties of the office. The appraisers is a little bit dated, as it says, he shall appoint deputy appraisers and fix the salaries with the consent of the approval of the Board of Commissioners or District Board. And then it goes on down and says that with the approval of the Board of Commissioners or District Board, he may appoint such specialized help as he may properly assess specific properties and may pay them such compensation as the Board of Commissioners or District Board shall provide and such. But neither one of them specifically says full or part-time, so probably what we're doing is fine, where they both have, Rhonda employs the full-time person, and then they work part-time with the register of deeds. Good?
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect.
Wish it didn't say he, but. The only other last changes, because I asked department heads to take another look at their job descriptions when I sent them. I emailed them a letter asking them to start seeing you on a regular basis. Rhonda said she did notice on hers and on her staff members a couple of like outdated equipment that they no longer use, and she had me remove those, and then she did have me reword where it listed the experience. Instead of saying 1 to 3, she said that they're required to have 3 years of mass appraisal or similar experience. So I reworded that. LaDonna asked that we add computer skills to her staff's ones. She realized that she didn't include that before, and she thought that that would be good to add, so we added that to each of those. And she had a couple of like wording or grammatical things that we cleaned up that she noticed. We did notice on Public Works that the road and bridge supervisor somehow we missed that we still had it listed as hourly, and we don't usually do that on them, so we cleaned that up. I did change the ones for the clerk's office, as you guys suggested, and I reworded it to say provides information to the county auditor as required. And then for the custodian, I added helps to preserve the historical nature of the building, including removal of ice melt from the limestone. So I think those were all the changes that you guys had asked for, and
On that note, I was having a conversation with someone who said that a lot of times in much more abrasive weather than we experience here, you know, in other areas, they just use sand. Maybe we should try that. I mean, I'm talking like where they get feet of snow. So you get out there, you remove the snow, you throw the sand down. When it snows again, you sweep it off, you throw a little more down. I mean, maybe that's just a simple, cheaper solution, especially if we're going to have them repaired, you know, and that would preserve the longevity. I mean, it's more of a manual labor issue of just keeping the snow off.
will the sand
ice.
will the sand break up the ice?
Well, if you don't walk
It
on
would
snow,
melt.
it doesn't turn to ice.
Well, I think
If you have a sleeting rain, you know, you can keep some on reserve, I guess, if you really need to melt it. But I don't think it's necessary to just keep the salt there. I'm talking about like historical preservation done in New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, where you get real snow, like feet and feet upon feet. We had 12 feet of snow in Erie, Pennsylvania this year. And while I understand there's a melting aspect with the salt, I really don't think we can, in the last few years at least, we can't justify enough snow to be salting the steps, which now are gonna cost, what, you know, at least $50,000 of repair work. I thought we were gonna ask him to come and visit at the meeting.
you asked it. I remember last week you guys asked if he was here, and he was. But I don't know. would you like us to ask him to come and visit?
Yeah.
I think I'll go.
We may, I mean, they need to escape here with some.
I can ask him to come next week, and you guys can visit. I'm not a maintenance expert, so I'm not sure the sand versus the salt. To me, as long as safety-wise, when we get ice on the steps and on the sidewalks, we're doing everything we can to be diligent to keep people from having a hazard or slipping and falling and causing a liability or work comp issue with the employees. You know, it's what's ever safest.
The idea is if you put the sand on the concrete, it creates, there's a gap there. There's air and there's room for
Yes.
mobile parts. So when you scrape it, if the ice does settle on top, you can get down to the bare layer again and you replace it. It's not a
Okay.
melting factor. It's just it's a barrier that is removable so that the ice goes with it. If you let the ice freeze directly to the concrete, then you're chipping and scraping, and I mean, you're doing that either way, but the sand creates a layer so that there's something mobile to move that doesn't freeze and attach.
That'd be a good conversation you guys can have. I'll ask him to get on the agenda and come next week.
Okay.
Sounds good. Anything else with the job descriptions, or do we think that we're done?
I can't think of anything
I
else.
think that's great. I think we voted to at least look at them yearly,
Yes,
so that's
yes.
great. I think that's a really good start, and thank you for bringing in Brian today. That
Yeah.
was helpful. It was a good find that you did.
I told him that maybe we would visit again about it next week and kind of see where you're at, give you guys some time to think about it, time to maybe see what the departments that will be affected, what they think about it as well. That's why I asked them to come, those that it's gonna directly affect, to see if they had questions or things like that, so they could hear for themselves, so.
I think the way he explained it, I mean, you can't help but see the benefits of it. I know it's $112 per person, but you're looking at.
But if we start with, post offer, then it won't be quite so difficult. We can kind of get accustomed to it. It would be a great place to start, and kind of go from there. And it will be better than, like he said, doing physicals that are more subjective. This is not subjective. It's going to be pass, fail, and help us down the road.
Right.
I'll come back next week and we can visit about that, and I'll let John Paul know that you need to see him.
Okay.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Deborah. Brett, did you want to talk to us about something, or you just here?
Just here.
He came because I asked.
Came for the physical guy and.
Came for the physical guy and stayed for the rest.
Okay. Alexis, I guess you're up.
I failed to mention this when Michael was here, I guess, but I just wondered, are we paying now Tanner Yost, and do we know when he's coming, or do?
I didn't ask him because I thought you'd ask him.
I forgot.
So I'll highlight it.
I don't know. I haven't talked to him, so I don't know. I assume that he made contact with him.
So I think it's our, responsibility as the commission to come up with some objectives for the engineer so that we know what we're asking of him when he is here. Obviously, he'll be looking at the projects that are current, but what are we as a board going to be asking him to address?
Well, he's participated in the bridge inspection, so I think he has a pretty general idea of what bridges are in most need of repairs or replacements or whatever, so I would say that would be a good place to start.
To ask him for his help with prioritizing the bridge projects?
Yeah, I would say so.
I agree.
I think he needs to have some say-so in it. He's been the one out and inspected them, so.
I think we should make him aware that, one of our priorities is cost effectiveness. If there's something that we can do, if we have something going on in one area and there's a way we can cost share between two bridges that need the same type of material or, hauling whatever it may be to that area, we need to try to be as efficient as possible. So I think the planning process is important. Aljo, Terry and I had discussed last week, and the week prior, things that may be priorities for us as far as bridges. Did you have something you would like to add? A concern, a particular bridge project that needs to be looked at?
No, I have nothing right now, anyway, prepared.
I'd like to get input from the engineer and Michael. Like I say, the engineer's been involved in inspecting them, so. I think to a certain extent we need to follow his recommendations, to a certain extent at least.
Well, I'm hoping he can be.
And I think he knows about, I mean, he helped on that project up there at Whackers. You know, he helped us find a cheaper alternative to the one that was engineered, so I think that he's well aware that we need to look at doing things as inexpensive as possible.
Well, and I think that while we have him on this sort of retainer situation, we can be following up with him monthly on what this plan entails. And then if he's working on one particular project that requires more hours than he's giving us, then he just bills those and we bill it to that particular project. But I think it'd be good not to waste too much time with him here when he's at the meetings discussing each individual project, as much as we need to be looking at the overall plan, you know, what the year plan is, what the long-term plan is, how we can be implementing good practices so that we can have some sort of rotation. I know you guys talked about you were on that 5-year plan before, and that's not in existence because of the funding sharing and all of that, but it doesn't mean we can't still have a plan of our own. Whether we financially achieve it or not is just, you know, according to the year and the process that we're in. I did have a couple of questions we had talked about, and you approved the, let me find it here, the Capital Improvement Fund. And, you know, I guess I'm just still concerned about it because the list of things that are on that agenda, so to speak, for that fund have been on that same list for quite a few years and they haven't been done. So why are we not looking at the more immediate things that we can do with that money that you've mentioned before? For example, we received quotes for a new ambulance, and you had said about taking that money out of the wind farm. Why are those types of issues, if they're coming up to be pressing, why are we not looking at those since you're approving a capital improvement fund plan every year?
No,
I mean, why are we just leaving the same things on the list year after year after year and not doing them and not rotating in some new ideas of things that are more pressing and a good way to use that money?
Well, I think the things you're talking about, like the landfill trailer and backhoe, a little bit of money goes in there every year until you build up to enough to where you can, at the time it needs replaced, you've put small amounts in there. And I think I did mention that day, you were talking about buying different things out of it, and I said I'd like to see us buy an ambulance out of it. So,
right.
I mean,
so what I'm saying is,
any
if
number of things that we can spend it on.
If the landfill is generating its own revenue, which it is, then why would we not charge them to budget their own capital improvement that pays for their own renewal and replacement of their own equipment instead of?
I'm guessing when the capital improvement fund was established, it was so that we didn't have to have a capital improvement fund in each single department.
Yet we
Is that
have
correct?
one in each, with money in each, and we use that $80,000 to crush that concrete out of the landfill one.
I think the reason why there's money in each is because those were all established before the capital improvement fund. The capital improvement fund was only established in '99, when, I don't know, Doris went to some meeting and she found out that they could do that, and that's what they were suggesting people do. So a lot of those capital outlay funds have been there for a while.
So at the end of the year, when you do fund transfers from the budgeted funds to the capital outlay or the special funds that are non-budgeted in each department, is that where that money stays?
Yes, like the health department, noxious weed, because they have capital outlay funds. Anything else, anything that's inside county general does not have.
That's what goes
And
into the capital
For
improvement.
the longest time, refuse was inside county general, and then we moved refuse out because it was hard. The refuse fund was supposed to be a non-tax levy fund. It was supposed to be a user fee generated fund when they went to the land, or when they started doing the transfer station. And what they found was that when it was inside the county general, it was generating taxes, which wasn't supposed to, so they moved it outside the county general fund. So I think that's part of the reason why the refuse fund is partly funded and that capital improvement fund is because of that. The old adage was, and whether it be right or it be wrong, whatever funds contribute to it is what funds get to be removed or to utilize it. So the highway department doesn't contribute into the capital improvement fund, so they don't get to utilize funds out of it.
But now the landfill does not either.
No, they do not. That is correct.
But yet on the list remains for several years to replace items for the landfill, but it's self-sustain, it's the only department we have that's self-sustaining.
Yes.
And we have a projected plan to assist them with money generated by budgeting in other departments. I don't necessarily agree with that.
For a long time, though, they were not self-sustaining, and, you know, that's part of the reason why we increased the fees. I can't remember when we increased the fees from $60 a year to $72, but that we were gonna have to generate a tax for them that particular year. Now, they have had some money to carry over now, and like you said, they crushed the concrete with it. But they're,
So speaking of fees, I had a couple conversations this week. So the fees just went from $72 increase again
no, it's at $72.
per resident.
Yes.
So then you increase the fees on the businesses.
The only fees that was increased on businesses is if Randan, because when he was in October, they asked him to look at the weights that we're charging businesses and to give us if he thought that they were more. So the only fees that were increased were those that he felt like the trash was more that they were generating than what we were building.
So we contracted with Randan, and Randan chose individual businesses that he wanted to charge more to.
No. He
So-
took what we're currently charging them for weights and he looked to see whether or not, I mean, I don't know how he does it, but part of it would be like, we have a dumpster out here. How many times has he dumped that 3-yard or 5-yard dumpster per week? And then he kind of calculates an estimated weight on it.
But you're saying that not everyone's went up.
No, not everybody's went up, just on businesses that,
Businesses that are producing more trash need to pay more because they're producing more and they're hauling more is being hauled to the landfill.
So does he
if
have
they didn't
a
produce any more-
scale on his truck to know? I mean, you can have a trash bag this big that's full of stuffed bunnies. I'm wondering how is that? That's a very pointed and very targeting type of practice.
well,
To
if
say
you-
that this
It's
particular.
been done as an estimate forever. They can't weigh every single dumpster.
So I'm saying, why are all the fees not going up? Why did just certain people approach me and say, hey, my fees went up, but so and so's
Theirs would
didn't,
have
but
gone
so and
up
so's
because
didn't?
they are producing more trash. Like, I'll tell you, I write the check for the grocery store at Mighty Mart. If he comes to the grocery store 3 times a week and our dumpster is constantly overflowing every single time that he comes, he knows we're producing more trash and we should be paying more. But if he comes to our business and it's smaller and it's less and there's not hardly any garbage in it every time, then he knows that we're producing less trash.
So
And
my question is, okay,
Sorry, I
every
shouldn't have
every business pays its annual fee, just like every residence pays its annual fee, because the government is mandating upon each parcel to pay this fee for the year. Then if that individual or that business chooses to have a dumpster serviced by that company, they pay a fee to that company that we're already paying. And then am I to assume that Randan doesn't pay us to dump? He gets to dump at the dump according to the contract?
He doesn't charge anyone for trash.
Oh, so now the person who's collecting the trash gets to dump at the landfill for free, and he charges each individual person that he picks up from, and the county pays him his contractual amount from each parcel.
There's 2 different fees. There's a collection fee and there's a solid waste fee. The businesses and the residentials are required to pay us a minimum of $72 per year.
And or more or less depending on who you are or what business you
Well,
are.
it depends on okay, for example, I have a dumpster behind the theater and 3 businesses dump in it. Each of us pay a collection fee for him to pick up our trash and take to the landfill.
Which is a flat fee.
But then I pay the county a disposal fee to dispose. Now, I can choose to drive that out there, or I can choose to have him pick it up. I choose to have him pick it up and pay the fee, rather than drive it out there. Because it's not worth my time to
So
haul 3
then,
bags of trash.
okay,
out
so I have several people telling me that they have chosen to get rid of the county mandated trash service and utilize another service. So why are we still charging them to to dump their garbage, which is now being picked up by a totally different hauling
Have they
facility?
contacted us and asked us?
I don't
or
know.
told
I didn't
us?
ask them that question.
Okay.
I just,
That's what I would ask, because I don't know who you're talking about. So if a business doesn't say, hey, I have, and I'm assuming they're not
well,
hauling
I'm pretty
into
sure
our
this
county,
issue
or
came up
they
last year because I'm pretty sure, I think it was Stephanie Erbo came in and talked to the commission, not last year, but right previous to the 2017 year, so at the end of 2016. And there were 2 separate businesses operating out of the same building using the same dumpster, and they were all individually paying for one dumpster. And so now you're saying that there's a calculated weight that's an estimate, and if they think that's going up for any one particular person or business, that they're increasing that. Yet they're already guaranteed the contract because we've mandated that individual contract with one particular provider.
I don't know how to get you to understand, but Randan is only picking up to collect it from site to landfill, and he's providing a service to the individual or the business owner that is contracting with him. And his fee is only to collect. Our fee is disposing of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he wouldn't get charged a disposal fee out there because the businesses and the residents are already paying us to dispose of it.
So what I'm saying is, if someone chose to not have his service, who we know disposes at our county-owned landfill, and someone else came from a different area and hauled it to their own landfill, wherever that may be,
Okay.
you're still charging each person their disposal fees?
We will charge each residence a minimum and each business a minimum. Because we don't care where they dispose of it or if they choose to burn it at their home. The disposal fee, my understanding is, based upon that resolution, the disposal fee is for you to have the opportunity to dispose your trash at the landfill, free of charge. If you choose not to dispose of it there, then that's fine. Now, however, let's go back to if they're disposing of another county and they've never told us that they're not disposing and we're still billing them at their estimated rate, that is a business, because the residential is going to, they're still gonna have to pay the minimum, but we need to know that. And I would say that the business owner, if their trash is being hauled out of county and they know it, they need to be contacting us and saying,
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah,
And then we'll
I
go
can-
down to the minimum rate, and then they will still have the opportunity to dispose of something at the landfill should they need to.
So your office is doing all the billing for the landfill?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Well, let's
let me just
clarify
explain,
that
let me
just a
explain to you how this works in other places.
Okay.
How this works in other places is, I own my own trash service, and let's call it ABC Trash Service. And I solicit to all of you for business. Would you like to, contract with me and I'll haul your trash away? So then I collect from you the money and I haul your trash away. And when I go and dump it, I pay.
Right.
So that's a business. What we're providing in Lincoln County is a socialized trash service.
Okay, but ask this, if you took your trash to another county, are you getting billed as you dispose of? Because it's
No,
my
I
understanding
pay the
is-
person, whoever,
No.
I pay ABC
Well,
Trash Service
okay.
and they haul it away, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't pay anyone else in this process.
Okay, just 1 second. But if you were a resident and you weren't paying that person to haul the trash away, and you were hauling your trash to another county, are they charging you as you dump the trash per bag or per weight, or are they charging it on the tax roll? Because my understanding is like Saline County, if you drive in there, you're paying
As
at the
you
time
go.
that you dispose.
Which
We
means
don't
that
do
if you
that.
don't, but I'm saying, but if you don't use it, you're paying for everyone else to use the landfill. And you're paying a fee for something that you don't use. I mean, that's a mandated activity that is way overstepping the bounds of governmental duty. We're basically telling everyone that you have to pay for something that you're not using.
I'm paying how many mills to the Lincoln USD 298, and I'm not using it.
Exactly. I mean,
So I guess it's,
it's just perpetuating the issue. I mean, if you don't have a choice, I would think that the least that could be done is that the person who's hauling the trash service pays, because if we're just letting anyone, including the trash provider, dump at our landfill, that expense is on the county. A business, when it provides a business, you have an income and you have an output. So, maybe that makes that everyone's trash service doubles, but that's their choice to use it or not. That creates competition in the workforce and in the marketplace. If you're just saying that everyone, whether you haul your trash or not, is going to pay this fee and pay the person who's coming to pick it up, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. No wonder the landfill's making money.
I don't know why it's any different than fire departments or the highway department. There's roads in this county I've never been on. I'm paying taxes to keep them up. And I'm paying taxes for first rural. I've never used the fire department. God forbid I don't want to use them, but I'm still paying taxes to use them. I don't see what's any different personally.
But you
It's-
start out, okay,
it's
you
a
start
fee.
out with schools and you start out with roads and infrastructure and you end up with trash. This is how this goes. You have to have a cutoff point. And what I'm saying is if Lincoln County is going to provide mandated socialized trash, what's next?
I think they used to charge by the dump load, if it was my understanding, because they've had the transfer station since 1992, so I was a senior in high school. But I believe that before that, they were charging by the dump load. If you were going to do that, then you would have to hire another employee to be out there to collect people's money every time they come in to haul their trash.
But we're paying to haul it from our station to Salina, correct?
Correct.
And what you're
that's what
saying is
that
at
that's part of what
$72 a
that
parcel, or whatever, at $72 a parcel,
For occupied residents.
okay, per occupied residence, at $72, we're still able to make money on what we then have to pay out, over and above what we have to pay out to haul our trash in a given year to Salina.
Except for any extra will go to replace equipment. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer your question because I don't really think that they're making money. I think by the time that they pay for
Well,
the
I
equipment.
find it interesting that there are these people saying that their bills have gone up at their estimated rate, but who's weighing it? I mean, if the size of
You
your
just said
dumpster
it,
doesn't determine.
estimated weight. You just said estimated weight.
Right.
Nobody's weighing it. It's estimated weight.
So if I estimate that you owe me more money, then you owe me more money according to my estimation. That's what's happening here.
Okay.
If a business owner disputes what the weight is, then they have the opportunity to go out and deliver their trash out to the landfill and have it weighed every single day, week, whatever they want to do, over a period of month or two, whatever you guys set. I think the last time somebody did it, they said over a month period of time, and then they would adjust the weight down. But then that entails somebody hauling out.
We need to move on.
Have you guys always done the budget? Or I mean, excuse me, the billing for them?
No.
How long have you been doing the billing?
We did the billing when I first started, then the billing went out to the landfill when they moved the Noxious weed department out to the landfill, and then it came back when they, lost their last landfill operator.
But at that time,
We've always done the assessment onto the tax roll though, because I'm in charge of adding the specials. So I've always billed the rural people.
How many counties put on the tax bill?
I don't know.
That'd be one good thing, it'd be
Because
good.
I don't think Mitchell County does, because I think Mitchell County charges as you come in to dispose. I think they have a bookkeeper.
How many people, or how many residents do not use it in
I don't
Lincoln
know.
County?
we wouldn't know because it would be up to them to drive out there personally, and or if your business has the dumpster, then you know where, at least if your business has a dumpster, you know where that dumpster is going, because according to who picks it up is where they drop off, dispose.
We need to move on. You're exceeding your time here. Adjourn the county commission meeting and call public building commission meeting to order. We have payments there to make. for bonds on the hospital.
You also need to reorganize and approve the minutes.
Which would you like to do first? You wanna take care of business before we reorganize?
That's up to you. I think there should be copies of minutes for all of you.
Oh, I just got to read what you gave us. Where did you get this?
Private individual. Where they got it, I don't know.
It's
Did they get it
wonderful.
from association headquarters? I don't know.
Kansas County Commissioners Association.
Did you wanna read the minutes for Public Building Commission?
I'd move to approve the Public Building Commission minutes for January 30th, 2017 and July 31st of 2017.
I have a motion on the floor, do we have a second? I will second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. We have two checks here for bond payments. One for $194,750. And one for $176,050. And then we have another check for, these are the fees for postage and stuff like that.
It's for postage, and then if you remember, Land Home Title just had sent us a bill towards the end of the year for
Bringing the title up to
title,
date.
yeah. And we paid that out of county general funds, so we just need to
Yeah.
reimburse it back.
So it's being reimbursed to the county from the Public Building Commission Fund. $251.79.
This is all for the hospital bonds, right?
Yes, yes. That's the only thing the Public Building Commission deals with is hospital bond.
And how's come we have two checks, Don? Is it because we refinanced the bonds or?
Yes, it's still, because there was a certain dollar amount that they couldn't refinance, so it's.
Okay. All right.
I would entertain a motion to pay them.
I'll move, we pay the bill, pay the bonds and reimburse the county for expense.
Do I hear a second? I will second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Now, Don, do I sign top or bottom?
Either or.
Dawn, will you hold these bills until next week since the commission meeting is adjourned and we didn't get a chance to go over them?
Right, very good that time.
Okay, we need to reorganize, I guess, Public Building Commission.
I would move that we retain the same officers for 2018, which are Terry Finch, President, Alexis Flew, Vice President, myself, Secretary.
I will second the nomination. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. I'm gonna turn it.
I think that's it. Conclude the Building and Public Building Commission.